All right, we'd like to get started. Welcome everyone that's here for our in our chambers and everybody out there watching. I've asked Kent Clark to come up and give us the opening prayer or whatever else he'd like to do at this time.
Our Father in heaven, as we offer prayer at the beginning of our council meeting, we are grateful for the blessings and the freedoms of our country, grateful for our leaders, and we pray for them. We pray for the city council this night as they ponder and make decisions on behalf of the residents, that they might be open to understanding and bless them to make good decisions. Ask you to be with us and our families and our city this day. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. Thank you. I've asked Councilman Gordon to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Would the audience please rise? And please repeat the pledge after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Thank you. All right. We've got a little presentation by our rodeo committee. So I'll turn the time over to Nick Hanks.
Thank you, Mayor. It's good to be here. I wanted to come in tonight and just give you a little recap on our rodeo last year. A great year. Again, we had all 4 nights were a sellout. Good acts, good contract people. We were fortunate enough to win the large rodeo of the year in the state of Utah with the Wilderness Circuit, which is a cool accolade. There's some other big rodeos in our state, some that happen the same time of year, so pretty neat award. I'd also like to preview a little bit this coming year. The rodeo committee has been to the PRCA committee meetings down in Vegas and have some fun talent coming. We have a rodeo clown that was the 2017 Rodeo Clown of the Year that'll be here. We've never had him. Justin Rumford out of Oklahoma, that I think will be a fan favorite. So tickets are going fast. I'm surprised watching online how many tickets we're selling this time of year. So yeah, get your rodeo tickets bought if you haven't, and we hope to see everyone there. I'll leave this with you guys.
All right. Take a look at that. Where do you want me this?
Congratulations, Nick.
Right there. Hey, this is a big deal. And it's another award that we've received here is our Fiesta Days Rodeo, and this is all because of the great council that supports this, the great city that supports this, and our rodeo committee, and especially our fans that come and support this every stinking year. So it's awesome, and it's great to get that recognition. So thank you, Nick, and make sure you let everybody know how much we appreciate that. Pass that down, take a look at it. Okay, we'll move into public comments. Anyone here from the public would like to come and talk to the public, address the mayor and council? You're welcome. Seeing none, we'll go to council comments. Let's start with Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. Had the opportunity last week to attend the airport board meeting. Learned some great things about what's going on down at the airport with the AWAS system coming online, the weather system that can now be channeled in and listened to by pilots. You can also make a phone call down there and get the weather of the Spanish Fork Airport. But it's a step that is another great step in the airport's life, and leading it to the what they call it, GPS system. The GPS system down there that will make it so pilots will be able to land a lot safer and get the GPS coordinates right to the front of the runway, so they'll be able to land even in some tough weather. So another step up from the airport. Appreciate the airport board. Appreciate Chris Child. He let me even come on a tour down there and took me around, introduced me to folks down there, and then took me around in the plane a little bit. And I took the stick for a minute, Mayor, and we're all still
Chief,
here to talk about it.
you heard that?
Well, he was in there. I had a licensed pilot with me, and it was a good time. So I'm excited for that assignment to the airport. Had a meeting with the Utah League of Cities and Towns Executive Board, with the Deseret News editorial board up in Salt Lake last week as well on the upcoming legislative session. And so we got to give our insight about what we think is going to happen there, and how we can try to make sure your local voice is heard up there at the legislature. So we've got some stuff planned for later this month. We'll go to the local officials day at the legislature along with our youth city council that Stacy's bringing up, and have a good time up there to kick off the legislative session. So that's the meetings I've had, Mayor, and that's all I have.
Great. Councilman Scopes.
Mayor, one report on the Veterans Council. They met the Veterans Council is hosting a dinner for the two veterans organizations, the Legion and the VFW, just a dinner of camaraderie between the two organizations. So that was a step in the right direction. The council itself will be doing that. There's other matters regarding budget, funds of the building that are still put on table as they decide what and where and how to deal with those then down the road and in the future. And then my new assignments haven't met yet, and so I will report on those later as they come. That's all.
Great. Thank you. Councilmember Beck.
Thank you. I have reports for all three of my new assignments. The Youth City Council met last week. It was fun to get to know the youth there. And they had, excuse me, Craig Larson from Post 68 from the American Legion come and talk about his service and encourage the youth to, throughout their lives, continue to serve in their community and country. And then next week they will be going up to the Capitol, and they're super excited about that. And they love meeting the governor, and it's fun to see them and mingle with them. We have a great group. And then with the library, I'll be attending my first meeting this week, but in a recent work session with the council, Pam, the director there at the library, shared the statistics of the first week. The library numbers were at 5,315. That was the first week in January, and so we were all really pleasantly surprised. Throughout the year in 2017, over 41,000 electronic materials were checked out. So the library is busy, their programs are full, and it's a really well-ran organization. And then with Miss Spanish Fork, anyone interested in running for Miss Spanish Fork, there will be an information meeting next Saturday here at the city offices. And if you have any further questions on that, you can contact me or the director, Natasha Lockhart. And that's all.
Thank you. Councilman Argyle.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have anything at this time except for just one comment. This time last year, our river was running at 200%, and at this time right now, it's running at 22%. We could use some snow. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Councilman Gordon.
Was that a prayer? Yeah. I like his prayers. That's perfect. Thanks. The only thing I have to report is a couple of dates, as I don't see Heather from the chamber. I'll remind everybody that tomorrow at noon we have a noon networking lunch down at the Justice Center, where Mike McCall, our local legislator, will be discussing legislation that's coming up in the upcoming session. So we have that networking lunch tomorrow, as well as they'll be talking about the QPR training, which is question, persuade, and refer to any of our friends or family or people that we may know that may be struggling with mental illness or thoughts of suicide. So that training will be going on tomorrow at the Justice Center at noon. So wanted to make everyone aware of that. You're all welcome. As well as the installation banquet and awards banquet for the chamber is coming up. It's at the ALC Peak Center in Salem next on January 24th. I think that's a week from Wednesday. And it's 6:30 p.m. So I'll get you more information on that. Should be another great event, as another year has come and gone. That's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
All right, I'd just like to report on this last weekend, the council and myself and all our department heads had our retreat. This is a really fun event. We spent about 12 hours for 2 days in meetings. What is nice about this is we get a report from all our department heads. They talk about what is the successes they've had for this past year, what their needs are for the coming year. And it's good a time for us to have a one-on-one with each of our department heads and talk to them. And so it's very beneficial to all of us. We're constantly trying to learn and improve and make Spanish Fork better, and through all this communication, I've only been to about 12 of them in my career, and it's been awesome every time. I look forward to them because that's where you can get a lot of information. And so we've got some really dedicated employees here in the city. Your council is great, and we're all striving to continue to make Spanish Fork #1 and the home of pride and progress. So with that, let's move into 101. And I just looked at you, Chris, because I assumed that you're always the 101.
Okay, there are some changes coming up with the electric rates. This is not a rate increase. It is a change in how rates are done. We talked about a year ago that we were pretty much the last city to not have tiered rates on electricity, and so tiered rates encouraged conservation and reward people who do conserve electricity. And so starting in February, about midway through February, the new rates will come into effect. And what will happen is the base rates will go down. I mean, the usage rates will go down and the base rate will go up. And what they'll do is the first tier, which is 0 to 500 kilowatts, will be billed at 0.081 cent per kilowatt hours instead of 0.086. And then from 500 to 1,000 will go to 0.084, which is a little bit lower than what the straight rate was before. And then the higher usage rate will go up to 0.088. And so at the end of it all, this is what we estimate the average bill to do. It will stay at $70.88. The average moderately high use bill will stay at $109.80. A really low bill will go up about 50 cents, but the net metering bill will go up about $1.50, and then the really high monthly bill will go up about a little less than $1. One of the things that I wanted to note is the reason why the average low use bill will go up a little bit is because of what is called the PCA. The PCA is a rate that comes in from UMPA to us, where based on their operations, because the cost of electricity fluctuates so much, in order to insulate themselves from that fluctuation, there's a little bit of change in the rate that comes to us, and that's called the PCA rate. In order for us to budget soundly, we just pass that PCA through, and with that adjustment, the rates have changed a bit from last year to this year, and so that's why their rate has gone up a little bit. But if you could go to our website, we want to point out one thing. A lot of these changes to do with the tiered rates and the base rates needing to be where they are have to do with what's called net metering. And net metering is when a resident gets solar panels. Traditionally, you get solar panels. They put it on their rooftop, and then when they create electricity more than they need, it goes out onto the grid, and they get a credit for that. And then when they use electricity, it comes back, and they get a deduct for that. And so a large part of evaluating whether a resident wants to do net metering or not is what the ROI is, or the return on investment. And so one thing that we wanted to do is create a system that was sustainable, so as many people could go to net metering as wanted, but also create a system that was predictable, so that if someone is trying to decide for themselves, should I do net metering or not, they could, as accurately as possible, predict what their rates will be in the future and be able to make good decisions. And so that's what this table is. If you go to our electric division's website, and then you go under net metering, so if you go to Public Works, and then you go to Public Utilities, and then you go to Electricity, and then there's a little net metering page that you can go to. There's a video you can watch that explains why the rates need to change in order to make them sustainable going into the future. And then there is our best estimation of what we believe the rates will be going on into the future, adding in PCA. So we can say, well, we are changing rates, as you can see over there, and keeping the average bill the same, but that PCA fluctuates enough that it's really hard to predict what the rate will be 1 month to another within a small amount. The PCA isn't huge. But that being said, in order to help provide the net metering community, or the people who are looking to do net metering, with the most accurate information we can, we've made some assumptions on the PCA, how it will act going forward based upon what we've seen in the past, and try to give numbers as close as we can for what the rates will be going into the future, so that they can plan on their return on investment. So anyway, this is a big change. It encourages conservation. It's getting us to a point where anyone could go with a net metering system, and our electric department and system will be sustainable, and that's the goal. So,
Right.
all right, one other thing. We had a bunch of residents come in to talk to the city council about Center Street and US 6. And what I'd like to do is just kind of give you, the residents out there, an update on where we are with that. We went to UDOT and we asked them to do a speed study on US 6 to decide if we can lower the speeds going into that intersection. Unfortunately, that speed study actually showed that it warranted raising the speed a little bit, but UDOT said they weren't inclined to do that. They were more inclined to just leave the speeds where they were. The other thing, though, that we requested is that we could give some preemptive flashing warning signs that said there's a signal coming up. And UDOT looked at that, and they were fine with giving some static signs that wouldn't be flashing. And they have committed to do that in the spring. We are debating whether we want, we're probably going to push to still try to get flashing signs. And so that's something we're working on and negotiating with UDOT. But right now, at least they are committed to the static signs, warning about a signal coming up. And then they also talked about making this from being just a standard crosswalk to a school crosswalk. And UDOT has different standards for school crosswalks, and so it will include some extra signage and things for the fact that it's a school crosswalk, and they have committed to do that in the summer. And then they wrote a little note in their email that if they felt like going overhead would not be feasible with a crosswalk, and they worried whether going under would be feasible with the railroad. But if the city wanted to pursue it and lead out in a push to get that done, that they would support the city and see what they could do. So we've been working on a possibility of going, taking a ramp here and then going under right here, and then possibly making a connection over to the junior high here. And we've been working on that. We applied for a grant through the Mountain Land Association of Governments. That's the regional MPO for this area that distributes large amounts of funds for these type of projects. And initially we did not score very well on that. So our intent is to go to UDOT and see if we can get some funds and extra support on that, and maybe combine that with some city dollars. And with that, we believe we might score higher on that. But we're really pushing hard on this and listening to the citizens and trying to keep them updated. And just wanted City Council to have that update, and anyone who's watching on this as well.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Okay, consent items.
Motion to approve the consent items.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, going to new business. SFCN rate something. Maybe it's increase. Mr. John Volcott.
Thank you. I am embarrassed to be here today. Because I am really sick of the industry of cable television and what they do each and every year. And I want to apologize to all of our users and everybody across the country for what cable television does, because it is totally unfair, it's totally wrong, and I totally can't fix it. So I come every year and I tell you the bad news. The bad news is particularly bad this time, and we will go over the numbers, and I will probably apologize some more, because I'm disgusted at what the industry is doing to itself. It's kind of just eating itself, consuming itself. And it isn't, there is no end in sight, and there is virtually nothing a cable company can do. Not only us, but other cable companies. You're all seeing the same kinds of things. The off-air channels, I skipped one. Sorry. It's only the technology guy. So every 3 years we do what's called retransmission consent. The off-air channels that you can pick up with an antenna decided about 6 years ago, well, 9 years ago, they were going to start charging us. They used to be free. They were always free. And they decided they were going to start charging. And there was a little bit of a fee, and then the fees last 3 years ago really started to stack. And I had kind of hoped that maybe we were just seeing a correction, right? And that the correction was done, and now we would see reasonable increases. It was a silly hope. There's no hope for that. They basically, they just want to get as much money as they can. So each year we go in with a consortium of 8 cable providers inside of the state of Utah, so that we have a little more bargaining power with these providers. So we're talking about Channel 2, 4, 5, 13, and the CW and some of the other smaller ones, like Grit TV. But we go in with this consortium. That is where most of the negotiations are done, is through this consortium. And we try everything we can to hold the line. We go to the final hour, and we're all worried because the contracts end at December 31st at midnight. And so we try to get everything done as best we can through this consortium. This year was particularly difficult. Really strange types of negotiation tactics. If you don't sign now, the price goes up. It felt like I was buying a used car, and that's really not fair to the used car people, because there was just terrible tactics like that. You have until the next 4 hours to agree to this type of a contract. Well, I couldn't even get it in front of you, let alone talk about it even in 4 hours. So they were just terrible tactics, because they're just trying to get as much money as they possibly can. Telemundo was one of the channels that I felt was just an unreasonable request. They wanted over 50 cents per sub, well over 50 cents per sub, for each and every customer every month for that one channel, which would be fine other than it's too much money. And so I tried to negotiate a lower fee. This one I actually negotiated directly with them and said that's just too much money for a Spanish-speaking channel in our community. I mean, there's a lot of Spanish-speaking people here, but there's a lot of people that just simply would not watch that channel because it is Spanish-speaking. I just wanted a reasonable rate. So I tried to negotiate a lower fee and got a little bit concession, but nowhere near what I felt was needed for us to carry that channel. So that channel went away at midnight on December 31st. So we no longer carried that. Was channel 20. We'd had it free for the last 2 years. So it was on what's called a must carry. So we were required to carry the channel by the FCC, but they decided what they hope to do is get enough people viewing, right, and enough demand for the product. And now this year they're going to switch to a retransmission consent, which equals you have to pay. And those negotiations broke down. Actually, we made an offer. They pretty much backed away as soon as I made my offer because it was nowhere near theirs. And I would have come up a little bit, but I wasn't going to go to that type of money for that channel. An interesting thing this year, and we hope to see more of this in the future, is the NCTC, remember, is the National Cable Television Cooperative. They negotiate the contracts with like ESPN and Disney and Tribune and those kinds of guys. Well, they stepped into it and started doing the off-air negotiations also. So this is the first time we've seen this. And they negotiated with a company named Sinclair, which is traditionally the very worst company that owns off-air channels, that owns these retransmission consent channels. And they own the Channel 2 and the KJAZ currently in our market. And so that was actually negotiated nationally with the NCTC. And it was still too much because they can't fix it either, right? I mean, here it wasn't only 8 cable channels, it was 1,000 cable channels, and they still can't fix it because these guys just want to get every single dime they can. And yet, with an antenna, you get it for free. So one of the requirements of that agreement, if I wanted to sign on that agreement, was that I had to add the tennis channel to expanded basic, which, of course, they charge for the tennis channel, which then drives the price of the tennis channel up, which, according to the FCC, this is kind of an interesting tidbit I faced 9 years ago, about 9 years ago, is that they cannot legally, according to the FCC, tie a non-broadcast channel with a broadcast channel, meaning you can't tie the tennis channel to an over-the-air channel because the tennis channel is not offered through an antenna. They can't do it. So what they do instead, they simply say, well, okay, if you don't carry the tennis channel, you have to pay us more than it would cost you to carry the tennis channel. And the FCC said, well, we're fine with that. That's perfectly okay. Just a ridiculous. So we still continue to have difficult times ahead for cable television. So just be aware, there's no end in sight. Things are going to be bad. The off-air channels continue to do whatever they want. We're looking at over 16% increase in basic because of these off-air. 16%. Why? And yet it goes up every year because they automatically build in like a cost of living or a inflation number. So it goes up 3 to 5% every year. Plus, every 3 years, they come back and go, oh, no, we want lots more. And I don't see any end. They just do it every stinking year. None of the content providers, not just the off-airs, but none of the content providers care about the overall health of the industry. They just don't care. They're willing to just let the price go as high as possible. And really, we know ultimately what that's going to do, and that is it drives people away from cable television. It drives them to over-the-top solutions and, watching Netflix and Hulu and Amazon Prime and those kinds of solutions as opposed to cable television. It's terrible for the industry. There is no excuse for these types of increases. It has nothing to do with inflation. It's just they want more money. Part of the problem is it's such a death spiral, right? Because the demand is going down, and so they have to raise the price to make up for the fact there's fewer people purchasing their product. And that, my friends, is terrible business. That is how you go out of business, is keep raising your rates because the demand is going down and you have to have the same X amount of dollars. Talk a little bit about what our competition does for a solution to this, other than the first one, which is amazing. Their website is just shocking to me at how they just will not tell you what the actual price is. They just don't want you to actually know. Why? Because the actual price is ugly. It's truth. I mean, our price, in my opinion, is ugly, and theirs is equally or worse. They do have a broadcast fee of $8, so that gets tacked onto your bill. So even if you get their special rate for a year and get locked into a 2-year contract, you still got to pay that. You got to pay that because that's a fee. That's not the actual rate, right? That's a fee they tack on. And they have a $6.50 local sports fee. You have to get it. You can't opt out. Wouldn't that be cool if you could just opt out? I would do this if I could just say, all right, well, I don't want the sports fee and I won't. No, it doesn't work that way. You are required to get it. They charge for their cable modem rental and always have, and keep raising the rate of that. They don't raise the rate of their internet, they raise the rate of their rental. They've raised it a couple times. They offer discounts, but they're just new customer discounts only. And you have to have a set-top box for every single television in your house, which we don't like. So what about us? Our website actually has fair pricing. You can go to it right now, and you can see what the prices are, and you can figure it out. Anybody can figure it out. It's like, here's the price for the tier. You don't have to put your address in. You don't have to, opt out of several things to even get down to the price. And then the fact is they only gave you the price for the next 2 years, but, well, the next year in a 2-year contract. And finding the actual price, I looked today, and literally it says it's going to be between here and here. We can't tell you where it's going to be. And all of that is subject to change. It's really weird to me. The price listed is the actual price, cable modem, or the fiber transceiver included in the internet price. So you don't have any extras that we're going to ding you for that. So if we can do fiber to your home, like we have to Kears, then you can have, if we do fiber to the home, the fiber transceiver is included in the price. There's no additional charge for that. There's no contracts. We've never had contracts, and I hope we never do have contracts. The other nice things about our system is we do not encrypt our basic and expanded basic, and that means that you don't have to have a set-top box. If you have an HD television, even with our HD channels, you're going to be able to see those HD without having a set-top box connected to your television. Really nice. Maybe you have a DVR connected to your main TV, but it's nice on the other TVs that you have in the house that you don't have to have a set-top box connected to them. And that's pretty rare in the industry. Almost everybody encrypts. Like our competition does, they require a set-top box for every television. And in our system, and that's not just rare in Utah, that's rare across the country, that you'll find somebody who does unencrypted basic and expanded basic digital signals, including HD. So pretty cool to mention. So this is what the prices are doing. Oh, I think I should apologize. So this is what we're going to see, the rate increases. Now remember that our rate increase is to the penny exactly how much our cost went up. We do not protect our margin, so the amount of money that I made on a customer with basic on December 31st is exactly the same as I will make after this is approved and these rates go into effect in a month. It's exactly the same. We don't make a penny more. Literally, the spreadsheet says, here is exactly how much that our cost went up, and that's that amount right there. This is a 16.83% increase in our basic, because it's every 3 years, remember, they renegotiate it, and you get this obscene number. To me, that's obscene. They should not do that. I could maybe accept a 5 or 6% increase, but a 16% increase is why I stand up here in front of you ashamed, embarrassed by our industry. Of course, in expanded basic, you get this also, right? Because you get basic with every expanded basic. So this price here, if you take the $333 out of this, you can see it's not nearly so bad, right? So these went up a much more reasonable amount, but this is now going to skew all of these numbers. So you'll get 8226, you'll get 9763. This one hurts me a lot. I just think these numbers are too high. And the full package, 129.64. So this includes Super Digital plus all of our premiums, HBO, Stars, Encore is what that includes. And then our triple play, the amount the triple play goes up is the same as the expanded basic, because the triple play includes expanded basic phone and the starter tier of internet. So the amount that it goes up is exactly the same. Me and Brian Perry are looking at all kinds of solutions. We'd really like to see some major changes in the next 3 years. And some of those things are technically not possible today that we'd like to see. Some of them are. Some of it, I just think we have to do something. We can't just continue to allow them to just price everybody out of the market. And short of just dropping channels, and I got to drop big channels. I can't remember to drop shopping channels because they pay me to be on my cable system. I have to drop ESPNs and Disneys and Fox Sports, and you lose your Jazz games. And it gets really, really ugly. The answers are not simple. So we are looking at other ways that we maybe can come at this. Bundling differently, for instance, changing around some of the tiers that we offer so that we maybe can reconstruct this. That takes time because we're under contract, right, to have things certain places. So we have to change those contracts and see if we can move things around. So you'll be seeing more of that in the coming years. Any questions on the prices? I am sorry. So just a quick comparison. Broadcast fee, we have none. So the price you see for basic really is the price for basic. So the $23 really was. There's no increase. There's no increase for the sports fee. We don't have modem rentals. There's no contracts. Well, 0 seconds. Yes, you have to have a set-top box with them. No, you do not have to have one for basic, expanded basic. You can get a DVR for them for $20 a month. You can get one from us for $13, and no fine print. So that's all I have. Any questions at all?
Sorry at all?
No. I am sorry. We feel it. It's a sad situation that I have to come back here every year, and every 3 years in particular, and talk about just a ridiculous industry that has no intentions of fixing it. And they are driving customers away, period. And those customers, once they're gone, they rarely come back.
So this is everybody, every cable industry is getting hit with this, not just Spanish Fork.
Oh yeah, definitely. And over the top, really taking a hit. I'll tell you, it was an interesting story. I was at a table with a bunch of cable providers at an NCTC conference. Oh man, this must have been 8 years ago, 7, 8 years ago. And even then, we were feeling OTT, the over-the-top customers leaving. And the AT&T guy stood up on this podium in front of literally hundreds of cable operators and said, OTT is not having an effect. And there was a moan and groan that went across the whole audience, because we all know better. You can repeat a lie as many times as you want. It's still just a lie. So the problems are pervasive, and yes, it's all across the industry.
Well, we appreciate what you guys are doing, trying to
Thank you, Mayor.
make it painless as possible.
Can't be painless.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
I think one thing that John said that's really important is as people do their research, they might see it's cheaper here or there, but they're just hiding it, like he was saying, through their rate structures and tricky metrics. We're just up front.
Okay. All right, moving on to ordinance 02-18, authorizing large solar panels to generate electric.
Thank you, Mayor.
Oh, we got to vote on the rates? Why didn't you? Did you apologize for that?
So the proposal,
Anybody at dawn?
the
All
proposal
right.
is that these rates be effective March 1st, right? What's your date?
No, it would be,
We put it in the February newsletter,
it has to have one full month,
yeah,
so then, yeah, it'd be March.
March 1st.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion, including that it starts March 1st.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, I apologize for not doing that.
Me too.
All right, thank you. All right, Junior.
So we have a net metering program. Chris has explained that quite well. The net metering goes up to 25 kilowatts, so that's basically a residential size. It's not a lot of power. We've had some businesses ask about it, and for them to do that, we needed to change our ordinance, and this accomplishes that. This is for large power. There's one small change to the net metering ordinance, and that just says if you want something over 25 kilowatts, then you need to go to the large power. This basically is for industrial and commercial customers. And the reason for that is net metering really doesn't work for them because they have a demand meter. The demand meter, the way that operates, would take away their incentive. And yet we want to give incentives for the use of solar. We think that that's something that's a benefit to the city. So we've come up with large solar generation, and basically this is a program that is a cogeneration or a feed-in tariff program. And what this does is it encourages solar panels over 25 kilowatts and up to 750 kilowatts. And it requires them to enter into a contract with Utah Municipal Power Agency. That is our power supplier. So everything they generate will be sold to UMPA. The initial price they have, I think, actually is an incentive as well. It's a little bit above market, so it's doing really well that way. And then they will continue to buy the power that they use from us. So literally they're co-generating, selling what they're producing, 100% of it to UMPA, and then they're buying 100% of their usage from us. So we have built into this the typical type of safety requirements that we need. We require them to get a contract for interconnection with UMPA, and then they need a contract with us as well. We think this solves the problem of the demand meters being a disincentive for large power, that this opens a way to get some large power, and at the market rate, or at the price that UMPA is offering, which is above the market rate right now, we think this is a good program and encourage you to consider and adopt it. Questions?
Okay, if there's no questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve ordinance 2-18, authorizing large solar panels to generate electricity and make minor amendments to the net metering ordinance.
Second?
Got a motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Councilman Gordon. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
That passes. Okay, reapproval of Newport Village preliminary plat.
Been through this a few times in recent months. Simply a situation where a project has lost its approval because of a time lapse. In this case, we've been back through the plans to review and to make sure that no changes needed to be made before we present this to the council for approval. And I know in this case as well, the applicant's pretty anxious to get a plat recorded. I think with your approval, we probably would have a final plat or recordable plat to Utah County within the next couple of days, so they could finish off their next phase and so that we could start issuing building permits and be done with it. Incidentally, Newport Village is about 5 or 6 blocks west of us. They're really halfway through the project now, so this approval would allow them to build the homes in the second half. My guess is they'd probably be done with that by this time next year.
No changes?
No changes.
Make a motion to reapprove the Newport Village preliminary plat.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. Warner annexation reapproval.
Thank you, Mayor. So the Warner annexation, the council approved back in August. This is the area that's basically behind the fairgrounds. As that got approved, we sent the ordinance to the county recorder. They have sent it back on 2 different occasions to fix some minor changes in the legal description. What that did is caused us to miss the filing deadline with the Lieutenant Governor's office, which requires us to submit within 30 days of the passage of the ordinance. And so Lieutenant Governor's office kicked it back and indicated we need to reapprove the ordinance. So we've been through all of the public hearings, we've been through the study, and we are proposing that we go ahead and reapprove the Warner annexation with the ordinance conditions that were initially approved back in August. Just for your information, we are going to change our procedure a little bit so we avoid this problem in the future. We're going to first file it with the Lieutenant Governor and then file it with the county recorder. And that needs some minor changes in legal description. That shouldn't have to go back to the Lieutenant Governor. So we've solved the problem, but that's what's happened and where we're at. So questions about that?
All right, if there's no questions or comments, I'd entertain a motion for the Warner annexation reapproval.
Make a motion to reapprove the Warner annexation.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilmember Beck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, the proposed annexation policy plan. This was supposed to be a public hearing and still can be. So it will be. How's that?
Perfect, Mayor, thank you. And we would only ask that you continue the public hearing so the council can take action. I think your next meeting's on February 6th. So I'll be back on the agenda then. Probably also ask that you take any public comment at that time if anybody wants to give any. You've had the document, I think, since last week. In short, we're required by state law to have an annexation policy plan. We've had one since 2002, which is when that law came about, and we haven't changed it since then. So someone, in fact, I think it was Councilman Gordon, because of an inquiry that one of your acquaintances made about our annexation policy plan, caused me to dust this off for the first time in a number of years. And sure enough, we had a couple of inconsistencies in the plan with how things exist now in Spanish Fork. I'll touch on those. But I also want to mention that, in essence, we have stripped this document down to the bone so that we simply include the information here that's required by state law and really nothing else. And certainly I see actually tremendous value in having a plan for the community's growth and where our boundaries eventually will be. I think, in all candor, this document for us is probably a little bit less important than it is for some other communities, where it happens to be that we have agreements with our 3 neighbors, you might almost even be able to say 4, about where ultimately our boundaries are going to be. Therefore, in some ways, this document has a little bit less impact for us, again, than some other communities. It's partly why I feel pretty comfortable presenting it in, again, a pretty stripped down sort of a form. All I really want to touch on is the map to talk about 2 things, which is really why we're here. But again, as proposed, this document does meet the requirements that are spelled out in the state law. And in short, this map includes a description of Spanish Fork City's current boundary. It's the area that, for me, that's in kind of that brown hue there, outlining it as you see. And that is within a broader area, which includes the blue. And these blue areas, in addition to what is currently in the city, that's the brown, indicate where we eventually anticipate taking the city boundary. So that, in effect, is our annexation policy. All of the lands within this line here, which encompasses both the blue and what shows up less well, the brown, on this image. By state law, we can only annex property if it's in our annexation policy, and you can take action to change this policy whenever you'd like. There's a process that we're required to go through, which is why we're here tonight. But just to touch on the 2 things that have changed, one's big, one's not so big. Our original plan that was done in 2002 was done when Ensign Bickford or the Trojan plant at the mouth of the canyon was still in Spanish Fork. So our current plan shows this area being in our city and therefore annexation policy plan. So this cleanup instead reflects the boundary that exists now between us and Mapleton here, post the agreement that we reached and that adjustment that occurred between the cities that took those lands into Mapleton, and then also with the construction of, I call it Woodland Hills Drive here, so from Main Street over to Arrowhead Trail. This is a really minor change, but prior to that road being constructed, our annexation policy followed, I think, a canal down in there. And in short, rather than following that canal, this plan would rather follow Woodland Hills Drive, which we think is a much more appropriate boundary. In fact, we're currently reviewing an annexation for some property right down here. You'll probably see that in the next month or two. And making this other adjustment to the plan would allow us to annex all of their property and be consistent with the policy. So again, pretty minor changes, but the process that we have to go through to get to this point takes a little bit of effort, hence the public hearing tonight. And again, we're talking about it in February.
So what we'll do is we'll go into public hearing and see if anybody would like to talk about this. So I'd entertain a motion to go in public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilmember Beck, a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are now in public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience would like to come and talk to the mayor and council about this? Great.
His eyes got big and he said,
Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
so moved.
You want to?
And then we want,
Let's just, instead of going out, let's just continue it to February.
okay, instead of going out, we'll just continue this until,
Need a motion to do that?
yeah,
Yeah.
till when?
February 6th.
February.
Motion to continue to February 6th, the public hearing.
Second.
A motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Okay, Zion's Public Finance Agreement for Municipal Advisory Services.
This group from Zions Bank is our public finance. Whenever we have bond issues or they help us take our bonds to market, find us an underwriter, give us, help us walk through with the bond attorneys, and this will renew the contract with them. The only thing different between this one and the past has been on a 5-year rotation, and sometimes we forget that it's expired. This one will renew and say, you're renewed until you give us a 30-day notice that we can get out of it. So all it takes is a 30-day notice to say we want to go someplace to a different firm. Okay?
Okay.
So I think it's,
Any questions, comments for Kent?
Remember, we don't pay them.
oh yeah, we don't, the fees that you see in there are usually charged, or are only charged when we actually do a bond issue. So like
Don't close on the deal.
Life Center, they helped us through that, and we didn't issue bonds, and there was no fees on that. So
Okay. I'd entertain a motion.
I move we approve the Zions Public Finance Agreement for Municipal Advisory Services.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scobes, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right.
I need 13 seconds to say I move we adjourn.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned. Thank you for coming.